Drawn and Redrawn, The Making of India's Internal Boundaries.
Hi, and welcome back to India's State Stories, a project that explores the evolution of India's political and administrative boundaries. This project is supported by the Center for Legislative Education and Research, Flame University, Pune.
In the last few episodes, we looked at the integration of princely states that were merged into their respective provinces and formed the Part A states. Now, we turn towards Part B states, that is, the states grouped together to form a viable union and were governed by a Raj Pramukh, a new constitutional position held by a former ruler of a state and appointed by the President of India. Along with these unions, some major states like Hyderabad, Jammu and Kashmir and Mysore state were also categorized into Part B states and governed in the similar manner by the Raj Pramukh. Let's dive into the fascinating history of formations of these unions and explore their individual stories in the following 9 episodes. Listen to the first 3 episodes of Season 2 to understand a deeper context. These episodes give an overview of the entire process of integration, along with an introduction to the legal instruments and some key personalities which made it possible. More details are in the show notes below, and let's dive in.
You know, some stories, they just refuse to fit neatly into headlines. They unfold over centuries, woven with these really intricate layers of history, politics, and, well, profoundly human decisions. And few places on Earth exemplify this complexity better than Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into its rich, intricate, and often profoundly misunderstood journey.
And you, our listener, have provided us with some fascinating source material, really detailed historical accounts, sharp political analyses that lets us trace its remarkable path.
Yeah, really great stuff to work with.
We can move from its ancient kingdoms, right through its pivotal, almost unique role during India's partition, and then into how its constitutional status evolved. It's quite a story.
So our mission for this deep dive is really to pull back those layers. We want to understand the key decisions, the personalities involved, and that unique political status that ultimately defined Jammu and Kashmir.
Getting beyond the surface narrative.
Exactly, giving you a comprehensive understanding, looking at how geography, leadership, international relations, how it all came together to create this truly exceptional case.
The real convergence of factors.
So let's start by laying the historical groundwork, because before we even get to the massive events of the 20th century, Jammu and Kashmir had this past stretching back millennia. It wasn't always one single state.
Indeed. Our sources show the Valley of Kashmir, for instance, wasn't just some remote place. It was this vibrant cultural hub.
Right.
Ruled by successive Buddhist and Hindu dynasties right up to the 14th century. And its history, it was meticulously chronicled, almost like a diary in the Sanskrit text, the Rajataranjini, a really foundational document.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is that later, it even served as this cherished summer retreat for the Mughal emperors for like 2 whole centuries. Shows its beauty and, well, strategic importance too.
That's a rich history, definitely. But here's where it gets really interesting for our story. How did this collection of different regions, the Valley, Jammu, Ladakh, Gilgit, how did they become the unified state we talk about today? Because that wasn't the starting point, was it? It was more fragmented.
Precisely. That unification as a single princely state happened much, much later. In the 19th century, actually.
Okay.
It came about with the rise of a Dogra chief, Gulab Singh. He came from a family with a strong presence there, and he served Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the Sikh ruler, really effectively.
With distinction, the sources say.
Yes. And for his service in 1818, he was granted the Principality of Jammu. That was his first major step, consolidating power in Jammu.
So, starting with Jammu, but what was the critical moment, the thing that actually cemented these different areas into one single entity?
That would be the Treaty of Amritsar in 1846. It was right after the First Anglo-Sikh War. The British had won, and they basically decided to create a buffer state.
Strategic move by the British.
Very much so. They sold Kashmir to Gulab Singh for 75 lakh rupees, acknowledging his loyalty and, his values strategically. This treaty wasn't just lines on a map. It was the birth of Jammu and Kashmir as we know it, as a unified political entity.
Right.
Under it, Gulab Singh got possession of all that huge hill country between the Indus and Ravi rivers. So
right.
Kashmir Valley, Jammu, Ladakh, Gilgit, a whole lot. And with that came the big title, Maharaja.
So A powerful, very diverse state is established under one ruler, and then shortly after 1849, formal political ties begin with the British government of India. This deep historical root, combining these incredibly diverse regions under one ruler, it's absolutely crucial context, isn't it? It created this complex tapestry of identities, of aspirations that were almost bound to clash when the British Empire started to unravel a century later.
Absolutely set the stage for future complexities.
Okay, now let's jump forward. 1947, the eve of Indian partition. This state, Jammu and Kashmir, suddenly finds itself balanced precariously right on a knife edge. The choice for princely states was stark: India, Pakistan, or theoretically, independence.
Absolutely, and geographically. Hugely strategic, a real crossroads. It bordered Tibet, China's Xinjiang province, Afghanistan.
Wow, yeah.
All these major players right there. This made it a geopolitical hot potato, you could say. Demographically, historically, it had a Muslim majority population spread across different regions, though that ratio did shift a bit in Jammu after partition because of migrations.
But the real tension, the core of the dilemma, lay with the ruler, Maharaja Hari Singh. What was his thinking as India and Pakistan were being formed, and everyone else was making these huge choices?
Well, he was in a deeply difficult spot. Our sources make that very clear. On one hand, he was openly hostile to the Indian National Congress.
Especially Nehru, right, because of Sheikh Abdullah.
Exactly. Nehru's friendship with Sheikh Abdullah, the popular Kashmiri leader pushing for self-rule, really grated on him. But on the other hand, he had absolutely no desire to join Pakistan, which he saw as a self-declared Islamic state.
So neither appealed.
Not really. He strongly considered the idea of an independent Jammu and Kashmir. He tried to stay neutral, play for time, and was incredibly hesitant for a long time to accede to either country.
But this wasn't just a crisis popping up in 47, was it? The sources point to grievances, powerful internal movements that were bubbling up for decades before.
Correct. Going back as early as 1931, there was interference from the Arar party in Punjab, which fueled discontent. And this spurred these vibrant internal political movements within J&K itself.
Like Sheikh Abdullah.
Yes, Sheikh Abdullah led the Quit Kashmir movement. It was a powerful call for responsible government against the Maharaja's rule, kind of echoing wider anti-colonial feelings, but very specific to Kashmir's situation.
And there was a counter-movement, too.
Right. In Jammu, you had the Praja Parishad movement. They represented a completely different view, strongly pushing for complete merger with India, and even wanting to get rid of what later became Article 370, so completely opposing poles within the state.
So you've got these strong internal pressures, self-governance versus merger, plus these immense external pressures from the new nations forming. It created this truly explosive mix for Hari Singh. Must have felt impossible.
Absolutely, a pressure cooker. And as these forces got stronger, the Maharaja found himself running out of time, running out of options. He had to make a choice that would seal his state's fate.
With all these forces swirling, Maharaja Hari Singh was really cornered. What was the final push? What made him finally choose under all that pressure?
Well, the situation just escalated dramatically, almost hour by hour, it seems. Our sources show his prime minister, Pandit Ramchandra Kak, was giving really evasive answers about the Maharaja's intentions at a key accession conference. That reflected the Maharaja's own deep indecision.
Even Mountbatten got involved directly.
Yes, Lord Mountbatten, the Governor-General, personally flew to Kashmir in June 47, specifically to try and persuade Hari Singh to just make a decision, any decision. It shows how urgent the British felt it was.
But Hari Singh initially tried for a middle ground, didn't he? Tried to buy some more time.
Yes, exactly. Jammu and Kashmir officially said it wanted to negotiate standstill agreements with both India and Pakistan.
What were those, basically?
Essentially temporary deals to keep things like post, telegraph, trade, travel running as they were before partition, while the final decision on accession was still pending.
Okay.
Pakistan actually signed the agreement quite quickly. They were keen to keep those links.
Yeah.
But India, for various reasons, held back, delayed signing, which left the state in even more awkward limbo, sort of administratively linked to Pakistan, but politically completely adrift.
And this is where things really came to a head. What was the specific event, the final catalyst that forced his hand?
It was the invasion, an invasion by tribal militias, heavily supported by Pakistan, moving towards his capital.
This wasn't just a minor skirmish then.
Oh no, this was a major military threat, a direct challenge to his rule, his sovereignty. Pakistan denied involvement, of course, but the pressure was immense, undeniable. They were threatening to overrun the state.
And the accusations flew back and forth later.
They did. Jinnah, Pakistan's founder, accused India of getting the accession through violence. Pakistan officially claimed it was all based on fraud and violence. The rhetoric was intense.
So under this extreme pressure, October 26, 1947, Maharaja Hari Singh signs the Instrument of Accession to India.
He executes the instrument, yes. And the Governor-General of India, Mountbatten, formally accepts it the next day, October 27th. Nehru confirmed receiving it that evening.
And that provided India the legal basis it needed.
Crucially, yes. The legal basis to send in troops to defend the state against the invasion.
Okay, but what's really fascinating here, and you highlighted this, is that unlike most other princely states,
Yes.
Jammu and Kashmir acceded on specific terms. It wasn't a blank check.
Absolutely critical distinction. Its relationship with India was initially limited to just 3 subjects: defense, external affairs, and communications. That was explicitly laid out in the Instrument of Accession itself.
So not a standard merger at all.
Not at all. It was a conditional entry. Think of it like a constitutional firewall built right into the accession document.
This specific terms detail is such a huge differentiator. What did this unique status really mean for Jammu and Kashmir compared to, say, Hyderabad or Junagadh or any other state joining India?
It meant it kept a distinctly separate constitutional position. Clause 7 of the Instrument of Accession was crystal clear on this.
What did it say?
It specified that the Maharaja, and by extension, the state couldn't be forced to accept any future constitution of India. And, just as importantly, the government of India couldn't just decide later to expand its powers beyond those first 3 subjects: defense, external affairs, communications.
So India couldn't unilaterally change the terms later.
Not according to that clause, no. It required the state's consent. This was an unprecedented level of autonomy for a state joining the Union.
And then there was the idea of a plebiscite, a vote by the people themselves. That was also unique, wasn't it? Not offered elsewhere like this.
It was a crucial part of the conversation at the time and reflected India's stated policy then. India maintained that if there was a conflict between a ruler's choice and the people's will on accession, the people's will should win out.
Mountbatten suggested it.
Yes, Lord Mountbatten himself suggested a plebiscite, ideally under UN supervision, to settle the state's final allegiance definitively. However, Jinnah strongly objected.
Why?
He argued a fair plebiscite couldn't happen while Indian troops were there, and while Sheikh Abdullah, who favored India, was in power. He felt the conditions weren't right for a free vote.
So this plebiscite, which was discussed so much, why did it never actually happen?
Well, India's stance became that Pakistan first had to withdraw its forces from the parts of Kashmir it controlled, as required by the UN resolutions. Since that didn't happen.
The precondition wasn't met.
Exactly. Plus, India considered the accession legally solid anyway because of the Maharaja's signature, the support from Sheikh Abdullah's National Conference, and later, the approval from the state's own Constituent Assembly.
Yeah.
The whole dispute thing got referred to the UN, and it became much more an international issue handled by India's External Affairs Ministry, which added layers of complexity.
So the promised plebiscite never materialized, and Jammu and Kashmir took another exceptional step, didn't it? Something no other state did.
Yes, it was the only state joining India that explicitly declared it would have its own constitution, drafted by its own Constituent Assembly.
Wow.
This was formalized in the Maharaja's proclamation on March 5, 1948. That's a remarkable degree of self-determination written into the process.
Which brings us directly to Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, the famous, often controversial article. What did it specifically do to lock in this unique arrangement?
Think of Article 370 as the constitutional mechanism reflecting those initial terms. It essentially limited the Indian Parliament's power to make laws for Jammu and Kashmir.
To just those 3 subjects again.
Primarily, yes. Defense, external affairs, and communications. If India wanted to apply other parts of its constitution or other laws to J&K, it needed the concurrence, the agreement of the state government.
And even that agreement wasn't final.
Right. That concurrence was then subject to ratification by the state's own Constituent Assembly. So the state assembly had the final say on extending union powers. It was a double lock, really.
And what about its temporary nature? That word causes so much debate.
Yes, it does. Our sources highlight that temporary here didn't necessarily mean it had an expiry date or could be easily removed by India unilaterally.
What did it mean then?
It meant its specific purpose was temporary until the state's Constituent Assembly finalized J&K's own constitution and its relationship with India. The power to decide the final shape of the relationship was vested in that state assembly.
So once that assembly dissolved,
The argument many make is that its temporary function was fulfilled, and the article became, in effect, a permanent feature of the relationship, unless the state assembly itself had recommended its abrogation before dissolving, which it didn't.
interesting interpretation. And financially, too.
Yes, another layer of distinction. Unlike other states, J&K wasn't subjected to the same financial integration rules. It even retained its own internal customs duties for a time. More autonomy.
So J&K had this genuinely unique, almost semi-autonomous relationship built into its entry into the Indian Union. How did that evolve over the decades that followed, as India kind of solidified its overall structure?
Well, our sources indicate that over time, many within Jammu and Kashmir began to perceive India's policies as gradually eroding that special status and autonomy. Policies often described as integration or assimilation.
It wasn't one single event, but more of a gradual process.
Exactly. A slow, incremental shift over many years through various constitutional applications and presidential orders.
What were some of the key changes that people point to as examples of this shift towards more integration?
Well, the Indian Parliament's lawmaking power was extended quite significantly beyond just those initial three subjects. Bit by bit, more items from the Union and concurrent lists were applied.
And those emergency powers?
Yes, crucial ones like Articles 352 for national emergency, 356 for president's rule, and 357 allowing Parliament to legislate for a state under president's rule. These were eventually applied to Jammu and Kashmir too.
Which, for a state with special status, would feel like a big change.
For many, it felt like a significant erosion of that promised autonomy, yes. A challenge to the spirit of the original agreement. Even the titles changed. The elected head of state, Sajari Assad, became a centrally appointed governor, and the prime minister, or Wazir-e-Ala, became chief minister.
So more than just symbolic changes.
They reflected deeper constitutional shifts, aligning J&K's structure much more closely with other Indian states, moving away from that initial unique framework.
So the unique framework established at accession, that conditional agreement, it gradually shifted towards a more integrated model. It really highlights the complexities that emerged from that very specific initial arrangement, doesn't it? Shaping the region's path for decades.
Yeah, absolutely. A constantly evolving and often contentious relationship.
We've covered a lot of ground here. Journeyed through centuries, from ancient dynasties, Mughal retreats, the forging of a unified state under Gulab Singh,
The agonizing choices faced by Hari Singh during partition.
and then the creation of this truly exceptional, constitutionally distinct status for Jammu and Kashmir within India.
And what's really striking is how all these layers, deep history, political ambitions, the feelings of diverse populations, the push and pull of international relations, how they all came together.
Right.
To create a situation that remained so distinct, so unique, and was constantly evolving. We've seen the immense pressures on leaders, the impact of external forces, and those unique constitutional provisions designed to define the relationship provisions that themselves became points of conflict.
This deep dive really shows us, doesn't it, that the story of Jammu and Kashmir is anything but simple. It's this incredibly rich tapestry woven with conditional agreements, the complex legacy of maybe unfulfilled promises, and this persistent quest for autonomy that really shaped its destiny in such profound ways.
So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you as you try to make sense of this history?
Yeah, given this really intricate past, the conditional nature of the accession, the whole journey of its special status, what does the Jammu and Kashmir case study tell us? Maybe about the nature of sovereignty itself, or about calls for self-determination, and just the huge challenges of building nations in these complex post-colonial contexts.
It's a powerful case study.
It really is a powerful reminder that history, especially in places like Jammu and Kashmir, is rarely, if ever, straightforward. It's a living thing, constantly shaping how people see the present and the future.